Hello, Oracles. Well, we finished red today. Kind of thought so. A lot of times going into a long weekend, we end up red strictly because it's a long weekend and a lot can happen over the weekend, and many swing traders like to get out of the market on that long weekend before the long weekend because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't want to show up on a Monday morning with a huge gap down and now they've lost a lot of profits. So they get out on a Thursday or a Friday if the Monday is the holiday, and they get out. It happens, not a big deal. So I'm not too concerned. But as I had said yesterday, I think today was going to dictate basically how the rest of the month was going to trade. And what I'm feeling in my gut right now is it's going to be a lot of ups and downs. I don't know if we're going to be on a straight downward path, especially since we had gotten the CPI data that was better than expected, but then the PPI data that was worse than expected, and then information from JP Morgan about consumer spending. So I think with those three pieces of information, we're going to see some ups and downs over the course of the month, probably tailing into the red at the end of the month, going into the FOMC meeting. But then we also have earnings. So again, lots of dichotomy in the market. Lots of different sides, positives and negatives going on. So we're kind of on a teeter here, and we could go either direction. In case we get too much negativity, we can go one way, and positivity maybe from earnings, and we go the other way. So it's definitely going to be a volatile month in my opinion, and we're going to be up and down. So dollar cost averaging for me is the way I'm going to go. And now looking at Tesla in particular, a lot of information this morning about Elon looking to buy Twitter, and then we got the TED Talk with Elon. So there's a lot to unpackage. I just finished watching the TED Talk myself, so I'm gonna have to break it down into multiple videos to go over my insights on all of it. But the piece that really stood out to me the most is the future going forward for Tesla. Something we have talked about on here several times, especially since the Q4 earnings call, saying that Optimus is going to be the most important piece and product that they work on this year. And Elon just reiterated a little bit more of that and gave us a little deeper insight, at least as far as timing goes, when it comes to Optimus. And so the pieces we got from this were, again, he said they're working on probably getting out a prototype this year, a more functional product next year, but he was kind of more realistic this time, saying within the next 2 years. So let's say by 2024, they get out a functional Optimus that comes out. He said from there, they're going to be able to scale up intelligence and productivity of this Optimus. So, producing it, building up the AI behind it, that is all going to grow rapidly beginning in the middle of the decade. Now for me, robo-taxis are really what was going to turn my head when it came to 2025. But now if he's looking at Optimus at this point, that could be turning as well. Now the reason these two are tied together is because Optimus is basically running on the general artificial intelligence that they are creating for FSD. And as was mentioned in the interview, it was kind of like it was that aha moment as they were building up the artificial intelligence for FSD, where Elon said, you know what, we can use this for anything. Once you come up with general artificial intelligence, what's the difference between putting it in a car on 4 wheels versus putting it in a robot on 2 legs? There's really not. You only have to build up just the general intelligence that comes with real world functionality as far as a human would be walking versus a car would be driving. And so now at this point, as Elon had also said on the Q4 earnings call, solving FSD is the other main project for this year. Because his plan is by the end of the year to have full self-driving to a point where it's safer than human driving. Now in the interview, he did kind of differentiate. He was saying it's going to be safer than human driving, but just listening to how he had said it wasn't a matter of they're going to solve full self-driving. They're not going to solve general intelligence this year. It was more about they're going to have FSD to a point where it is going to be safer than human driving. So that's what he's comfortable with. And then from there, general artificial intelligence will come thereafter. And so pushing into 2024, when they have a more functional Optimus that is out there, I'm going to put on my radar 2024 as the year that they solve the basic general artificial intelligence that is needed to take everything to the next level. And he brought up the point that, we are in a massive labor shortage across the world. So by bringing on an Optimus, a robot that's going to replace many boring and dangerous jobs around the world, it's not really going to take away from many jobs because we do have a labor shortage. So the people who are working in those fields would just be working in other fields where there is a shortage of labor. So it's more of a transition of labor rather than a replacement of labor going forward. And again, he did reiterate one of his tweets that he had made recently about the future is going to be a world of abundance. Because when you have these robots that are going to be producing products for a significantly cheaper cost, figuring, let's say you buy a Tesla bot for a factory for $25,000, you're replacing a worker that maybe you were paying $35,000 or $40,000 every year. That robot can also work more hours. That robot also isn't going to take vacations. That robot also doesn't need to have all the benefits that go along with that initial pay as well. So significant cost cutting in these factories, which is in turn going to cut the costs of the products that are produced. So the cost of everything is going to come down around the world. And one of the things that I love about what he had said in this interview is when he was young growing up, one of the issues that he had was the fact that he took everything that people said literally, because he is just a literal brained man. And that is what happens in his brain. So in return, when he says things literally. I mean, think about all the tweets that we have seen even just recently, tweeting about selling his stock, tweeting about buying Twitter, tweeting about, the full self-driving in the future. These are all things that he literally thinks are going to happen or are literally true in his mind. So, and he doesn't like to lose, which, as he said, nobody really likes to lose. But as far as he's concerned, he literally sees these things happening. And for a man who is based on finding the truth, and when it comes to a person who is seeking truth on the level of physics, it comes down to he's looking for the truth of the universe. So he is literally just trying to find all of the truth in things and getting himself and of the rest of the world there. There honestly really is no one more genuine than someone like that who has a brain that just thinks literally in this direction that says, this is where we need to go. From a physics standpoint, I see these things that can be solved. These are the physics of the universe and the truth of the universe, and we can get there. And so then he talks about scaling at this point when it goes to the scaling of the batteries and what the world needs in order to get there. 300 terawatt hours of batteries and energy that are going to be coming out of this. And for those 300 terawatt of hours of energy, he said they're not looking to do all of it. They want to have a significant piece of it, but it's going to be left up to others. They can't do it all themselves. And tomorrow morning's video, I'm going to get into more of the scaling piece of all of this because that's going to be part of Master Plan Part 3. And I think a lot of what he spoke about today is really putting together really all of the ideas of the master plan for the future and all that massive scaling. So I'm going to compile all of that tonight to be able to share it with you guys in the morning, my insights, because I got a lot of other puzzle pieces that I didn't have before that I can now put into this as far as what Master Plan Part 3 is going to be. And my goodness, I have so much more conviction now after what he had shared today as far as timelines with Optimus. And when he speaks about these things, because he comes from a place of literal truth, it really tells me that this is the direction that we are going. And obviously, the more support they can get, the better. But, he's just about, let's get there to mass scale as fast as we possibly can. And this is going to hold true with Optimus when they do start coming out with that. And so, as he said, we're looking at that scaling of both intelligence and production starting in the middle of this decade. And obviously there's no numbers behind what he's looking at for production numbers, but that's where they're going to basically be starting when it comes to the production of these Optimus bots. And he's saying, by 2050, we could potentially see one of these buddy robots in every single household across the globe. So, he said the Optimus is going to be significantly larger than the car market. And this is something we had already discussed. We knew this. Dave Lee talks about that massive growth because when Optimus can potentially take over labor, that scale is so much larger than the automotive market. It just blows your mind thinking about it. It's almost like a 50x larger at this point than what the automotive market is. And 50x is because it's limited by the number of humans we have. Well, what if you had an unlimited number of humans? Well, then you'd have an unlimited S-curve that could grow forever when it comes to labor. And he said the only things they are missing are real-world intelligence for the AI bot and scaling. Those are the two things he feels that they are going to be able to get to over the next 2 years and then continue to grow it from there. And then by 2050, one in every household with robots that can basically do anything you want them to do. And of course, he does talk about, the safety features, anybody can just tell this to stop and it's going to stop. They're going to have chips put into them, and it's not going to have a software part that you can get changed over the air and get hacked into for any reason whatsoever. It'll be, hardwired into it that you have to change manually. So you'll have that safety, so you won't have a dystopian society in the future. So he's already thought about all of these different pieces of it along the way. Now, of course, he admits he's not perfect, so there's always going to be a learning curve. But it seems like he's had some of the major issues that people have questioned about this already on his brain and solved. So this definitely, again, as I said, raised my convictions even higher in the company. And so I am looking to just continue enjoying this growth. And I think we are just at the very tip of the iceberg of the growth of this company going forward. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the scaling piece of everything that he got into because, again, like I said, that put together a bunch of missing pieces for what I feel is going to be Master Plan Part 3. Let me know in the comments. If you guys haven't had a chance to watch it, I'll put the link down below for the TED Talk. But let me know what your thoughts are on Optimus and what Elon had said about it today. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support and feedback. If you have not subscribed, please do so down below. Sign yourself up for notifications. I am over on Twitter at OracleTim1. I share all of the latest Tesla news, pertinent stock market information, and all of my daily trades. Thank you so much. Have a great one.